All right, today we're diving into something that, honestly, shouldn't even exist. It's a piece of ancient tech that's completely rewriting what we thought we knew about our past.
So I want you to think for a second. What's the most important piece of technology you're using right this minute? I bet your mind goes straight to your phone, maybe your laptop, right? Good guesses for sure. But the real answer? It's probably something you're not even thinking about.
Believe it or not, it could be the shirt you're wearing right now. Seriously, the simple act of weaving thread into cloth, that was an absolute game changer for early humans. A foundational technology that's so common today we don't even see it anymore. And for the longest time, we thought we had a pretty good handle on when that story started. Turns out, we were way off.
Okay, so to really get why finding a scrap of ancient cloth is such a huge deal, we first need to talk about, well, all the stuff that doesn't survive.
Yeah, there's actually a term for it, invisible archaeology, and it makes perfect sense when you think about it. Stuff like wood, leather, baskets, and especially cloth, this was the backbone of daily life for ancient people. But the problem is, it's all organic. It rots. It turns back into dirt, leaving these massive, frustrating gaps in the historical record.
And here's the key difference. A stone tool, that can last for millions of years. But a piece of cloth? Poof, it's gone. That's why finding even the tiniest, most fragile little piece of ancient fabric is like finding a page from a book we thought was completely lost. It's a direct glimpse into how people actually live day to day.
And this is something you've got to keep in mind. Whenever you hear an archaeologist say something is the first known example, that almost always just means it's the oldest one we've found, the oldest one that survived. It's about preservation, not invention. You can bet there were thousands, maybe millions of earlier versions that just disintegrated. And that context makes the discovery we're about to talk about even more mind-blowing.
So the big question is, where did this impossible piece of fabric actually show up? Well, for that, our story takes us to a truly incredible place, a 9,000-year-old settlement in what is now modern-day Turkey.
Welcome to Çatalhöyük. And listen, this wasn't some sleepy little village. No way. This was a massive, sprawling settlement, packed with houses that was buzzing with life for more than 1,000 years. We're talking starting over 9,000 years ago. It's genuinely one of the earliest cities on Earth.
Right, which brings us smack back to the central mystery. Fabric rots. In a place like this, it should have been gone in, a few decades, tops. So how in the world does a piece of cloth manage to stick around for 9,000 years? Well, it turns out it took a combination of two very specific and kind of dramatic events.
Okay, clue number one, fire. Turns out, when houses at Çatalhöyük caught fire, which happened, the intense heat didn't always just burn everything to ash. Sometimes it would char the textiles, basically baking them in a way that stopped them from rotting. Then, clue number two, their burial practices. They actually buried their dead, wrapped up in cloth shrouds, right under the floors of their own houses. This kept the fabric protected. So now you put those two things together. A body wrapped in cloth, buried under a floor, in a house that then burns down. And suddenly you have the perfect freak conditions for preservation.
But, just finding the cloth was only half the battle. The next big mystery was, what was it made from? And the answer to that question completely flipped what experts had assumed for decades.
See, for years, everybody just figured that early cloth from this part of the world had to be made from flax, the plant that gives us linen. It was just the default theory. But when scientists actually got these 9,000-year-old pieces under a powerful microscope, nope, not flax. The threads were made from something called bast fibers, which they were stripping from the inner bark of local trees.
And I want to be really clear here. This wasn't some simple, primitive alternative. Making good, strong thread from tree bark is incredibly complex. It means you have to have a deep, intimate knowledge of your environment, which trees work, the right time of year to harvest, and a whole multi-step process to turn tough bark into soft fiber. This wasn't just twisting grass. This was sophisticated, localized technology at its finest.
So, once we know what it's made of, we can start to do something really cool. We can actually work backwards to figure out how they made it and really appreciate the ingenuity that went into this lost technology.
At its heart, all weaving is based on this elegant, simple principle. You have one set of threads, called the warp, that you stretch out really tight. Think of that as the skeleton. Then you take another thread, the weft, and you weave it over, under, across the warp. That's what locks it all together and creates a solid piece of cloth. Simple, but brilliant.
But simple principle doesn't mean easy work.
This whole production chain, from start to finish, this wasn't a casual afternoon project. It was a massive undertaking. You had to go collect the bark, then prepare the fibers, then spin it all into usable thread, then set up your loom, and only after all that could you even begin weaving. It took planning, skill, and a serious amount of time.
So what was all this cloth for? Well, the main evidence we have, because of how it was preserved, is for wrapping the dead in burial shrouds. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's what was lucky enough to survive. In reality, this technology was the absolute infrastructure of their daily lives. It was their clothes, their backpacks, their grocery bags, their blankets. You gotta think of it like it was their version of plastic, cardboard, and duct tape all rolled into one incredible versatile material.
Okay, so we found an ancient piece of tree bark cloth. Cool. But why is this such a big deal? Why does it fundamentally change how we should think about our Neolithic ancestors?
Because it shatters the old stereotype. It forces us to see that their world of technology wasn't just about hard, durable things like stone tools and mud brick walls. They were also masters of what you might call soft technology, an entire universe of fibers, thread, and weaving that was just as sophisticated and just as crucial for their survival.
And think about what the very existence of this cloth tells us about their society. It means they had systems for teaching and learning, passing these complex skills from one generation to the next. It means they had to manage their time, because weaving takes hours of focused work you can't spend doing something else. And in a huge community like Çatalhöyük, it's almost certain that some people became real specialists. Expert weavers who were so good they could trade their cloth for food, letting other people focus on farming or building. That's a complex society.
So in the end, this discovery at Çatalhöyük really does force us to repaint our picture of the Neolithic world. As the researchers themselves said, their technology wasn't just about stone tools and mud brick houses. It was also this incredibly sophisticated world of fibers, thread, and weaving. It was a world that they didn't just build, they also wove it together.
And that just leaves you with this one kind of tantalizing thought, doesn't it? I mean, this single piece of fabric survived against all possible odds. It really makes you wonder, what other amazing breakthroughs, what other invisible technologies and incredible human achievements are still buried right under our feet, completely hidden from us, just waiting for that one lucky break to be discovered?